Hey people, hope everyone's doing well out there. I want to throw out a important video that I think most people should watch, especially if you've been watching me all these years, for the last 10 years, discussing the housing crisis, housing affordability, middle class getting bought out, mass exoduses. We've done all that here. And I kind of, you know, somebody asked me and emailed me and said, Mike, I haven't seen you in a while. Are you okay? Well, the channel was suspended again for the 11th time. Now, I want to bring forward a video for you guys and three key points, and we're going to go connect the dots. Okay, and I hope you could give me a chance to explain this to you guys, especially if you're in housing, or you're looking to sell, or you're buying, or you're looking to buy, or you've bought but not sure, or you're underwater, or you can't sell. Interest rates going up. We've been talking about this for a long time now. We need to hedge against inflation. So these are the three main key reasons why in Western English speaking and blue states countries, blue states in America and Western speaking countries from Canada, Australia, New Zealand to the United Kingdom, why we're in this housing predicament we are in today, and why it's becoming a thing all of a sudden and not 10, 12 years ago when it should have been. So the number one main reason is money laundering. Money laundering has been a big impact. Majority of it coming in from mainland China, and we've made multiple videos showing how much money was coming in to Canada, making 2020 and 2021 the biggest housing market years of all time. A lot of it had to do with placement of money and moving of money from Chinese shores. Money laundering has always been a problem through casinos, through all kinds of ways, through even colleges and student refunds through colleges. It's kind of weird, but we did get into this before. Another reason is artificially low interest rates. So governments are to blame. And obviously, the governments control what the banks do, right? The banks aren't private sector anymore. It's more of a public sector. Um, and they basically follow in order of what governments feel is best. And artificially low interest rates. We made a specific video called Frankenstein a few years back. We created a Frankenstein monster with these artificially low rates that have destroyed the fabric of our societies. It's to get the middle class and the working poor in with the money launderers to catch up. A lot of people in the West have been catching up to housing. Well, Mike, I have 100,000, 200, 500,000 equity in my home. Well, as long as you didn't touch the equity in your home, as long as you didn't take a second mortgage and use your house as an ATM machine to feed yourself, you should be okay, right? And the third main key point is wages are not keeping up with triple-digit housing inflation. Housing inflation in the Commonwealth it has been pretty much double and triple-digit since pretty much 2010. It's the countries have been competing for money laundering, and money placement. That's why you have the Vancouver model. That's why countries were competing with money and disenfranchising their own middle class. Now, so this is a big deal. This has been a major deal, and it's disenfranchised so many middle-class Canadians. Oh, America, with the new Biden president-elect, I told you that day I made a video when Biden was selected as president of the United States. I made a video on that day, stated what will happen. And what will happen is you'll see rural parts of America, housing to go up 50 to 100%. And look at it now. It's out of control. Now, America's admitting it's in a housing crisis. America's admitting. So let's go into connecting the dots. Now, please bear with me. So we have videos here going back. This is going to explain. So for us to understand how we got to where we are today, we need to look at the situation from, let's say, 10 years ago. So here we go, guys. This is a video I did here back in 2015. Where basically Canadian middle class disappearing, targets closing in Canada, food becoming unaffordable. So, Mike Martin's here from the Mike Martin's channel. Just want to throw up this video discussing the Target closures in Canada. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to get worse because the middle class is being diminished in Canada. It's gone. The middle class is gone. Middle class is house broke. What we call it now. House broke means all the money they have, they invested into their house, which they have another 90 years to pay off because the absorbent prices on the homes So let's connect the dots here. So I might have to make a few parts of this series to get you guys to understand. So Canadian middle class disappearing, Target closing in Canada, food becoming unaffordable. So this is all 5+ years ago. Food prices out of control. At this rate, people can't afford food by 2020. Wages not keeping up with inflation and production. A working poor society ahead in the West. Price of oil drop, but food prices go up. So they were blaming the price of food going up 7-8 years ago on the price of oil skyrocketing to $120 a barrel. But then oil went down to $20, but food kept going up because they can't hide the cover of inflation under oil when oil is about $20 a barrel. Canadian dollar in collapse mode. Price of food has surpassed my rent. The new Emerald dollar might become a reality in North America. Keep in mind, guys, this is all 5+ years ago, right? Housing, Vancouver housing severely unaffordable. Housing bubble, will it burst in Canada? In 2016. Housing bubble inside info. Playing the R card, they were calling racist people that basically foreign investors. If you called a foreign investor out on money laundering or anything, you were called a racist. Then they were offering 100% loan-to-value on mortgages with no deposit. Castle or teardowns. They were comparing 5-6 years ago castles versus teardowns. Public spaces in Britain cities fall into private hands. Land grab. And then we went into Vancouver's now in a housing bubble. When was this? This was me walking around the streets here. This was in...
Just in an area here in Vancouver. Just going for a walk on one of the back streets here. Just chilling out.
So that was in 2016. That house right there. This house right there.
These are signs of
that house right there is like $3 million. You could buy that same home in Alabama for $40,000. But anyways, let's keep going here. Empty streets in Vancouver. Housing market across Canada goes up. Canadians priced out. Vancouver housing crisis, bubble out of control. Government's asking citizens to stockpile food. That's in Germany. That's not in Canada. They would never do that in Canada. Vancouver housing update. The bubble gets bigger. Vancouver housing conspiracies, then Vancouver housing crisis illusion or fact, Vancouver housing crash, what a ripoff, Vancouver housing crisis mass protests. We were seeing protests back in 2016, 2017 for housing, this housing crisis because wages weren't keeping up with inflation. Vancouver housing crisis let the lawsuits begin. 15% on foreign buyers tax. That was when they were proposing the foreign buyers tax in Vancouver. Canadian banks favor foreign home investors. Vancouver, London in a housing bubble. That's London, England, by the way. When will it crash? Vancouver housing crisis. Death of the department store by 2020. That video I did there. Vancouver housing crisis, what a mess. Bank runoffs, Germany in deep trouble. Vancouver housing crisis, watch this. Investors fleeing, this is the key right here. They put in the foreign buyers tax, investors fleeing Toronto to Seattle. Okay, and that's destroyed both those housing markets since then. Vancouver and Sydney, Australia, brain drain. Vancouver versus Sydney housing crisis, must watch. Housing prices skyrocket all over the world. That's, again, if you watch that video, it goes in depth. Get out of Vancouver. Housing is ruined. When was this? Get out of Vancouver. Housing was ruined.
YouTubers, Mike Martin's here.
Okay, that was in 2016. So let's keep going. Vancouver, quiet streets, no one around. People forced into homelessness. Then they had rental bidding wars that put us in this position. Vancouver housing, no lights anywhere, so it's like dark. No one's home. Vancouver housing crisis. Chinese investors going into Chinese investors. Things are getting bad. China's destroying my community. Next, the world. Food is costing more than my rent. That was like 5-6 years ago. Housing affordability in BC. Empty homes, not many homes for Halloween. And then it goes into sales start to plummet. You know why sales started plummeting, folks? Because housing, people were moving out to other cities. Investors were also looking at middle-class cities. Property tax hike coming across Canada. More taxes to fund government BS spending. That was 5-6 years ago. Housing spiking. Langley Surrey, U.S. Minister. Mass exodus of young families. Brain drain. Canada's immigration to sell homes to wealthy immigrants. Canada to take in 400 immigrants per year. Toronto home prices invaded by investors, Chinese investors, right there. Housing crisis, Vancouver emergency alert. Food to skyrocket by 2021, 830%. I don't think I'm too off on that. The video's like 6-7 years old. Vancouverites abandoning condos. And it just keeps going. Australian mortgage prison part 4. I can't find the other parts that were deleted. Toronto, Vancouver home buyers punished. First-time home buyer loans. So they were doing the first-time home buyer loans because people couldn't afford to put a down payment on a home. So the Canadian government was issuing a loan, but it's not like the loans they do in America where you don't have to pay it back if you live in the house for 3 years. You have to pay it back with interest to the federal government in Canada. Homes are now our new ATM machines. Housing affordability out of reach. When was this? Housing affordability out of reach. When was that?
YouTubers.
That was in 2016 again. So, sharp correction in real estate. Red hot markets, Canadian housing crisis. Shivering van dwellers, expensive rent. So we're talking about professionals living in their own work vans. So, housing crisis, Australia, wake up. All hell is going to break loose in major cities. That's 2021. We're predicting a crash for 2021. Housing prices still up, more pain ahead. Global property prices fall amid dangerous conditions. So they're lacking in. That's when they were competing for money laundering, right? Get out of Vancouver, price hikes for 2017. Get out of Vancouver by 2018 or else. Housing crisis, foreign money laundering, 7 to 11 billion laundered through Western Canada. That was, again, 5-6 years ago. JCPenney stores closing, the end of the department store. Government intervention in the housing crisis. Government intervention, rest in peace, housing. Chinese buyers now looking at cheaper properties. This is the pinnacle right here. What date was this? When Chinese buyers were leaving Vancouver because of the foreign buyers tax. And that was in January 7, 2017. So what happened was foreign investors were leaving the cities and going to rural areas, and that's the damage it started causing. As people, middle-class citizens like myself, I left the city of Vancouver in mid-2017. Early 2017, sorry. Like first month of 2017, actually, I left Vancouver. But to be frank with you guys, I left because the price of food was getting out of hand. The cost of operating was getting out of hand. The price of everything was getting out of hand. Now let's take a look here. So let's keep going here, connecting the dots. And so that's the turning point right there when Chinese buyers were looking for cheaper properties. And then they were dismantling Vancouver tent cities because people were just forced into homelessness. Housing bubble won't burst. And why it won't burst? Because we're dependent on exporting homes to China. Real estate, double-digit correction needed. Kelowna's housing prices set to skyrocket. Look at them now from this date to what Kelowna's housing prices are now. You guys will have a heart attack. $1,000 hydro bill, prices out of control. Affordability, housing migrants, mass exodus. Millennials taking on too much debt. Investors pumping up Toronto real estate market, and then again, it's all foreign invested related. A record-setting year for Canada's housing market. Canada wants more Chinese, 500,000 per year. First-time home buyer loans, disaster ahead. A housing crisis, monster homes on farmland. So this is where we're going to get the food shortages here. So that's the food shortages we've been talking about because they've been buying up land that could grow pretty much year-round, specific things in Lower Mainland, but they basically turned them into these ugly mega mansions that are sinking in the ground. Economy becoming more dependent on housing. China will own Canada by 2020. So if you look at our big mines, you look at our exports, look at some of our ports of export, none of it, most of it's not Canadian owned anymore. And they want to buy out telecom companies, merge with telecom companies. We don't have anything left in Canada. New Zealand housing sell-off, that was a big thing back then, and New Zealand was out of control. China clamps down on banks moving currency overseas. So China was seeing this movement of money leaving their shores that they had to protect their own interests in China. Price boom in the GTA, get out of Sydney, Australia, housing out of reach. Home price data gone. Foreign buyers tax working. So the foreign buyers tax was working. I'm leaving Vancouver. I'm done. There it is right there. That's the day I left Vancouver. Home buyers are short on cash. Gutting gas stations for homes. Finally leaving Vancouver. Toronto's home prices to the moon. Abolishing the foreign buyers tax because it's working. Tech industry moving out of Vancouver. Canadian homeless crisis, again, more and more. Vancouver, BC homeless crisis, get out of Get out of, I don't know. Home sales price averages drop. Chinese entering housing market in full force again. So it keeps going. Urgent. China suffers largest capital outflow. Again, more and more money was leaving China. And let's see the date on this. And China was worried because they were losing a lot of their wealth.
Mike Martin's here.
So when was this? This was on February 4th, 2017. I told you guys I left the city. And second month of 2017. There it is, February. I'm already in my new home. Thank God I left that house. Thank God I left Vancouver. So let's keep going here. Toronto housing market on fire. Get out of Surrey, Burnaby, U.S. Minister, Vancouver. 25,000 vacant homes in Vancouver. Vancouver bubble has burst, or has it not? Toronto housing severely unaffordable. And Chinese housing wave tsunami hit Toronto and Seattle. So it just keeps going on. We're going to stop at that video because I want to explain. So if you connect the dots and see how or my points become valid, money laundering is a big, big deal. Even China was taking note of it, but the amount of capital flows that were leaving Chinese shores. You know, I'm like 2,000, 2,200 just real estate videos discussing the buyout of the middle class, the sell-off of the middle class, the destruction of middle-class families across Canada and across the Commonwealth, right? A lot of my Australia videos are gone. Over 400 of them they're gone. I don't know where they are. And New Zealand ones too. They're all gone. I don't know why they just took down those videos. It made no sense. They could strike me and shut down my channel. I would have moved to another platform. Done. But the problem is I don't understand it. Let me know what you guys think. Housing crisis. There's so much going on. Canada was addicted to exporting homes to China, and look where it's got us today. And Canada looking into bringing more Chinese to replace us now. And if you look at some of the Mike and the Nights we've been doing and some other videos we've been doing on other platforms, you will see what is happening and how the transformation has begun. And they're hoping to wrap things up by 2030. So hopefully we keep our voices up and heard and get the messages across. Housing crisis has been a crisis pretty much since 2010. Everyone says, well, 2008 and this and that. No. It really started happening in 2010 because that's when we started bringing in foreign money to compete with locals. But then you look at California. California is a pioneer of money laundering, bringing in and placing money placement in from China. It is a blue state, and they did bring in a lot of money, and they started in 1993, where California started placing money in from China in 93. New York started in 97, 98, really placing Chinese money in New York. A lot of the blue states were having the Vancouver model money placements across their territories because they wanted to compete for the dirty money and compete for disenfranchising their own people. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I look forward to read what you guys have to say. It really means a lot to me that a lot of people have been with me for over 10 years now, discussing this issue and bringing it to light. I'm on many other platforms. If you can't find me on here, and I'm suspended for it will be my 12th suspension if they shut me down again. You can find me on many other platforms. Just type in Mike Martins. Thanks, guys. Mike Martins here. I have spoken.